Are you ready to hear the brutal and true story of the notorious Bonnie and Clyde? This infamous criminal duo, along with their accomplices, committed numerous murders and robberies during their crime spree in the early 1930s. But how did Bonnie and Clyde become the most wanted criminals in America? Let's delve into their past and see how they went from ordinary people to criminal pairs who were feared by many. In this video, we will take a closer look at the life of Bonnie and Clyde, their crimes, and how they ultimately met their demise. Get ready for a roller coaster ride of emotions as we uncover the true story of Bonnie and Clyde. When the posse heard the sound of a fast-moving vehicle approaching on May 23rd at 9:15 a.m., they were about to give up their mission and take cover in the bushes. However, they were interrupted by the sound of the approaching vehicle. The Hope Barrel drove up to the posse's hiding place and had a conversation with Methan while positioning their Ford V8 nearby. In accordance with their plan, the barrel came to a stop, and all 6 law enforcement officers opened fire while the vehicle was still moving. Oakley fired the fatal shot that ultimately resulted in Barrel's death from a bullet to the head during the initial flurry of gunfire. Approximately 130 rounds were fired by the officers before they were unable to continue shooting due to running out of ammunition. In the year 1910, in the city of Marina, Texas, Bonnie Elizabeth Parker became the second of 3 children to join the world. When she was only 4 years old, her father, Charles Robert Parker, passed away unexpectedly. After her husband's death, Emma Parker, Bonnie's mother, moved the family to Cement City in West Dallas, where she worked as a seamstress. Poems such as Suicide Cell and Trail's End were written by Bonnie, who would later become famous for her poetry and the story of Bonnie and Clyde. In high school, Bonnie first made the acquaintance of Ruth Thornton when she was 15 years old, just before her 16th birthday. The two left school together and got married soon after, but despite the fact that their marriage was brief, they never divorced each other. After they parted ways in January 1929, Bonnie moved back to Dallas, where she found work as a waitress and re-established her relationship with her mother. Ted Hinton, who worked for the post office, was frequently seen as one of Bonnie's customers. In later years, he became a member of the Posse, which was assigned the mission of locating Bonnie and Clyde. He started working for the Dallas County Sheriff's Office in 1932. In 1909, Clyde Barrow, the 5th of Henry Barrow and Kimmy Walker's 7 children, was born into a poor farming family in Ellis County, Texas, which is located southeast of Dallas. Clyde was the 5th of 7 children that the Barrows had altogether. The Barrows, along with a great number of other families from rural areas, relocated to Dallas in the early 1920s and established themselves in West Dallas, an urban slum. They were forced to spend the first few months living underneath their wagon because they did not have enough money to purchase a tent. Clyde Barrow was just 17 years old when he was caught by the police for the first time in late 1926. He was arrested because he was late returning a rental car that he had rented. This was Clyde Barrow's first arrest. He made the decision to abscond rather than face the repercussions of his actions. However, this proved to be a temporary solution when he and his brother were taken into custody for stealing turkeys soon after. Between the years 1927 and 1929, Barrow held a few legal jobs, but he did not let this stop him from engaging in illegal activities. These included breaking into safes, robbing stores, and stealing automobiles. It wasn't until January 1930 that he met Bonnie, who was introduced to him through a mutual friend. Over the course of a few weeks, the two spent a lot of time together, but their love affair was cut short when Barrow was found guilty of car theft and imprisoned by Sergeant Burt Wiseman. Despite being behind bars, Barrow managed to escape from the prison farm with the help of a weapon Bonnie had smuggled in. However, he was taken into custody once more very quickly and was a victim of sexual assault while he was incarcerated. Barrow's first murder was committed in self-defense when he smashed his attacker's head in with a pipe as retaliation for the attack. However, one of the other inmates admitted to being the perpetrator of the crime. When Barrow's mother successfully petitioned for his release on February 2, 1932, he left the prison as a bitter and hardened criminal, according to his sister Marie and fellow prisoner Ralph Foltz. Following Barrow's release, he and Foltz immediately began plotting a string of robberies to steal resources and weapons in preparation for an assault on Eastern Prison. Bonnie and Foltz were unsuccessful in their attempt to steal firearms from a home in Kaufman because they were apprehended. Bonnie was eventually set free, but Foltz was found guilty and given a life sentence for the crime he committed. The situation escalated further when store owner J.N. Booker was shot and killed during a robbery in Hillsborough on April 30th. Booker's wife identified Clyde as one of the shooters from police photos. On August 5th, Sheriff C.J. Maxwell was shot and killed by Clyde and Ross Dyer as he and Deputy Eugene Seymour approached them while they were drinking moonshine in the parking lot of a country dance in Stringtown, Oklahoma. This marked the first of 9 police officers that Clyde and his gang would kill. The infamous criminal duo Bonnie and Clyde, along with their accomplices, committed numerous murders and robberies during their crime spree in the early 1930s. One of their accomplices was W.D. Jones, who joined the group on Christmas Eve in 1932. The group quickly became known for their violent ways, as they killed a family man named Doyle Johnson on Christmas Day and a Tarrant County deputy named Malcolm Davis in January 1933. By April, they had already killed 5 people. In March 1933, Clyde's brother Buck was released from prison and reunited with his wife Blanche. They met up with Bonnie, Clyde, and Jones in Missouri, where they spent their time playing cards and drinking. On April 13th, the gang opened fire on police officers who were investigating suspected bootleggers, killing one officer and critically injuring another. The group managed to escape, but they had to abandon most of their possessions. The gang continued their crime spree, robbing banks and taking hostages in different parts of the country. They frequently abducted robbery victims or police officers and would release them far from home. The gang showed no mercy, shooting innocent bystanders and police officers who stood in their way. Their violent ways eventually caught up with them as they were exposed for their wrongdoings. Bonnie was in critical condition due to a leg injury when the gang stayed at a tourist court in Missouri in July 1933. The police were alerted to their presence and surrounded the cabins, but the gang managed to escape once more. Buck and Blanche were seriously injured during the gunfight. The gang then set up camp at a deserted amusement park in Iowa, where they were eventually surrounded by police and spectators. Clyde was shot and developed pneumonia, dying 5 days later in the hospital. The rest of the gang was either killed or captured, putting an end to their violent crime spree. The story of Bonnie and Clyde is a notorious one, marked by crime and violence. In September, the gang had an opportunity to visit their families in Dallas after being separated for 4 months. However, Jones went to see his mother in Houston instead. In November, Jones was apprehended unharmed and returned to Dallas. During a visit to family near Sowers, Texas, the gang narrowly escaped arrest on November 22nd when they were ambushed by deputies Bob Alcorn and Ted Hinton. Bonnie and Clyde were shot in the legs, and that same evening, they were charged with the murder of Tarrant County Deputy Malcolm Davis in January. Clyde's involvement in the Eastern breakout led to the death of Major Joe Crossan, and this incident was one of the reasons why Captain Frank Hamer was hired by the Texas Department of Corrections to capture the Barrel Gang. By May 1934, Clyde had 16 arrest warrants from 4 different states, and based on the gang's movements, Hamer was able to predict their location. On May 21st, the Posse in Shreveport learned of Bonnie and Clyde's plan to visit Ivy Methan in Bainville Parish. Although initially untraceable, the Posse was able to plan an ambush on Louisiana State Highway 154. The Posse was about to give up on May 23rd when they heard a car approaching quickly. The Ford V8 carrying Bonnie and Clyde was quickly shot by the Posse, killing Clyde instantly. Despite previously being shot, this was Bonnie and Clyde's final confrontation with the law. As we come to the end of this video, it's clear that the story of Bonnie and Clyde is one that continues to fascinate and captivate audiences to this day. From their humble beginnings to their violent crime spree, their story is a testament to the power of love, loyalty, and the pursuit of the American dream. While their actions were undeniably criminal and horrific, it's also worth noting the cultural impact they had on the time period. Their legend has been immortalized in movies, books, and music, and their story continues to inspire both fascination and debate. As we reflect on the brutal true story of Bonnie and Clyde, we can't help but wonder what might have been different if they had chosen a different path in life. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the brutal story of Bonnie and Clyde. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.